When death came for me on the morning of my 30th birthday, most souls would have surrendered. But my only thought was of a lawsuit. My name is Elias Vance, and for as long as anyone could remember, the men of my family were born with a clock already ticking down. The townsfolk called it the Vance 30th, a sad, inevitable chapter. We lived our lives in a frantic rush, trying to cram a century of love, laughter, and labor into 3 short decades. My grandfather built a house that still stands, all in his 29th year. My father wrote a collection of poems about the beauty of a world he would barely know. And I fell in love with a woman named Sarah and held our newborn son, Leo, feeling a joy so profound it was matched only by the crushing sorrow of knowing I would not see him take his first steps. On the day I turned 30, a familiar coldness seeped into my bones. The world faded to gray, and I felt the gentle, inexorable pull away from everything I cherished. But as my spirit separated from my body, a fire ignited within me. It was not the fire of life, but the white-hot flame of pure indignation. This was not fate. This was a theft, and I would not let it stand. My journey to the underworld was not one of fire and brimstone, but of silent gray plains and a slow-moving river of mist. Countless souls shuffled along in a single silent line, their faces etched with resignation, headed for the great scales of judgment. But I did not join the queue. I walked against the current of spirits, my purpose a shield against the crushing apathy of the realm. I was searching for the court of the sovereign of the final gate, the ultimate arbiter of life and death. When I finally stood before his obsidian throne, in a hall so vast that sound itself seemed to die, I did not tremble. The sovereign was a figure of shadow and ancient starlight, his presence a weight that could buckle mountains, but my resolve was forged in the love for the son I'd left behind. "I am Elias Vance," I announced, my voice echoing in the profound silence. "And I have come to file a suit against you. My family has been unjustly cursed. For generations, our men have been reaped at the age of 30. This is not the design of nature, but a perversion of it. I demand justice." A low, resonant voice filled the hall. "Justice is the foundation of this realm mortal. We do not deal in curses. Your family's timeline is as it is written in the great ledgers. The threads of your lives are spun short. It is destiny." But I refuse to accept it. "Destinies can be tampered with," I countered. "Systems can be corrupted." It was then, in the Sovereign's archives, a library of lifetimes stretching into infinity, that I found the clue. While searching my own family's ledger, I saw the faint, recurring mark of an unnatural severing. While desperately seeking an anomaly, I found one. A name, Silas Croft, whose thread should have been cut centuries ago, yet it stretched on, impossibly long. The ledger showed he was 300 years old. His entry was smudged, and next to it was a shimmering golden residue I had seen nowhere else. He lived in my very own town. Whispers among the newly arrived souls gave me the rest of the story. Old Man Croft, they murmured, had found a way to cheat death. He had struck a bargain, paying a yearly tribute not to the sovereign, but to the shadow bailiffs, the spectral envoys tasked with collecting the souls of the dead. In exchange for gold and earthly treasures, they left his name off their collection lists year after year. To balance the ledgers, they needed to shorten other lives. They chose the easiest targets, families with no power, no influence, whose short lives would cause no cosmic ripples. They chose my family. Armed with this knowledge, I returned to the Sovereign's court. I presented my findings, the impossibly long life of Silas Croft and the whispers of bribery. The Sovereign's form seemed to darken, the starlight within him growing cold. "These are grave accusations," his voice boomed, "but whispers are not proof. A smudged ledger is not proof. If you want justice, you must provide it. Bring me undeniable proof of this mortal's confession and this treacherous bargain. Do this, and I will hear your case." He then granted me a passage, a temporary tether back to the world I had just left. I would be a phantom, unable to touch or speak, a ghost whose only power was to observe. The challenge was set. I had to make a 300-year-old man, steeped in his own arrogance and secrecy, confess his crime. Returning to my hometown was agony. I drifted through the walls of my own home, where I saw Sarah weeping as she rocked our son, Leo. The sight nearly broke my spectral form, but it also hardened my resolve into diamond. I found Silas Croft living in a decadent mansion on the hill, a place built with the profits of stolen time. He was a withered, hunched figure, but his eyes were sharp and greedy. He was a man terrified of the death he had so long evaded. I could not speak to him, so I had to be clever. I watched him for days, learning his routines, his fears. His greatest fear, I realized, was that his benefactors would one day come for a higher price. So, I decided to become what he feared most. I gathered all my will, all my anger and love, and focused it. One night, as a storm raged outside, I manifested in his study. I did not appear as myself, Elias Vance. I appeared as a shadow bailiff, cloaked in darkness, my voice a chilling echo of the underworld's winds. "Silas Croft," I hissed, the voice not my own, but one of cold authority. "The accounts are unbalanced. The sovereign grows suspicious. Your payment is overdue, and the price has increased." Panic seized him. He scrambled to a safe, pulling out jewels and gold. "I have paid you! I have paid your brethren every year!" he shrieked. "For 270 years I have paid. You promised me I would never have to face the final judgment. You took years from others to give them to me. You told me the Vances were an easy price to pay. It was everything I needed." He had said it all, and in that moment, I knew the sovereign was watching. The tether held, the proof was delivered. My spectral form was pulled from the room, leaving a terrified old man amidst his useless treasures. I stood once more in the obsidian hall. The sovereign's presence now thrummed with a controlled fury. "The proof is undeniable," his voice echoed, shaking the very foundations of the realm. He summoned the 2 shadow bailiffs responsible. Their spectral forms were stripped of all power, their essence bound in chains of pure judgment. "You broke your oath for mortal trinkets," the sovereign declared. "You will now serve your eternity in the deepest, most forgotten corners of this realm." They vanished in a flash of dark light. "As for Silas Croft," he said, and with a wave of his hand, a shimmering thread representing Croft's life appeared. "He has lived 270 years on borrowed time. That debt is now due." In his mansion, Silas Croft suddenly felt the weight of 3 centuries crash down upon him at once. His body, held together by a corrupt bargain, aged to dust in a single heartbeat. Justice, in the underworld, is swift and absolute. Finally, the sovereign looked at me. A different light now emanated from his form, one of respect. "Elias Vance," he said, "you have held the system to account and exposed a rot within my own realm. The injustice done to your family is erased. The curse is broken." I watched as he reached into the cosmic tapestry and mended the severed threads of the Vance family line. "From this day forward," the sovereign decreed, "your kin will live out their natural span. And for your courage, you are granted a choice. You may remain here, in a place of honor, or you may return." There was no choice. There was only Sarah and Leo. The next thing I knew, I was gasping for air, the morning sun on my face, the sheets of my own bed tangled around me. Sarah was by my side, her eyes wide with disbelief and tearful joy. It was the morning of my 30th birthday, and I was alive. I lived to see my son take his first steps, to teach him carpentry, to watch him fall in love. I lived to hold my grandchildren and tell them the story of the man who sued the sovereign of the final gate. The Vance 30th became a legend, A family tale not of a curse, but of a blessing. A reminder that you must never surrender to an unjust fate. For even in the face of death itself, one person's courage, fueled by love, can challenge the cosmos and rewrite the stars. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like and subscribe for more.